That's it.
So basically, we just started 2 months ago this project where we interview different founders and experts.
Yeah.
And we found your startup, and we want to talk with you about the early days and the exit.
We are most interested in the early stages. I mean, how you found your idea, how you built your MVP, how you found your first user, first paying user. So,
Yeah.
could you first introduce yourself and your startup, please?
Sure. So my name is Sarthak. I co-founded a company called Invoid, where we were helping companies automate their KYC processes and create identity-based workflows in their onboarding journey the way they want, right? So compliance and KYC is something which is, for a lot of companies very fundamental. Then there are companies where it's mandatory, and then there are companies who use it for fraud checks and for fraud prevention on their platforms. So we used to serve companies across these domains. And why we were, why we were the fastest growing in the country, because we were the only developer friendly KYC product in the country. Others had become incumbent, required a lot more integration time, um, did not give the full gamut or the full suite of services. So that's the sweet spot that we were able to hit. We were full stack, as in we were end to end in a lot of cases. Plus, we were um, you know able to serve a lot of industries because it was developer friendly, and the modules that we'd built. So I mean, what I mean by that is, um, we were serving companies in the fintech domain, of course, the banking and the fintech domain, then in the gaming domain, then in the crypto domain, then in the wealth tech domain, then in the dating domain, matrimony domain, social networking domain. So this is something that, KYC, in most of these places, KYC wasn't a mandatory thing, but, our services were so easy to use and, comparatively, uh, pocket friendly, that they wanted to spread less and less fraud, wanted to prevent fraud in their
Right.
platforms for dating, matrimony. And also we had a couple of proprietary AI models also that we had trained and built in-house. That's where we were, also able to take a competitive edge. So this is what Invoid used to do. We ran it for almost 3 years, 3 to 4 years, before, it got acquired by Bureau ID, which is a bit bigger player in the same domain, plus funded by Okta and a couple of VCs from India and Southeast Asia. So, they are building a broader layer, a broader product out of KYC, which is number-based fraud detection, checkout, fraud prevention, all of that. So that's how, our product fit right into where they were already serving a layer of customers.
Right. Could you tell us more about your background before you started the startup? I mean, did you have what's called the founder market fit? Both you and your
Uh,
co-founder? No.
Nil, nothing. Okay, so a bit background is, I had done computer science engineering from Delhi, which is India's capital, right? And post that, I was working in a travel-based startup, um online travel-based startup. And though I was working at a scale which was around 2 million daily active users, I was nowhere closely related to finance, right, or any other B2B play. It was a pure B2C play. And so, I mean, my co-founder also, we don't come from a background which was KYC or compliance or fintech or banking or finance. So when we had started, uh, so I started right out of college. 5, 6 months down the line after passing out from college, I decided to quit my job and start doing it. We were building uh, computer vision models, computer vision layers for retail spaces. That's how we started the product. We were building something in the retail space where we were helping them, capture insights using the CCTV on their premise. So we were giving them our own machine learning models to identify, customers who were walking in, give them a seamless experience. If they want to be recognized in the store, then, recommend products on the basis of that. See analytics, the basis of how many women versus how many men, what was the age group that was mostly interacting with your products, were they repeating customers. But apparently, the value was high, but it wasn't really adding to top line revenue for any of those retail players, right? Because it's analytics and data, and to make it into meaningful monetizable data, um, it was again, it was very tough. We weren't able to succeed in that, and again, this is not in our domain, right? I mean, we just thought that it's a great idea. Only computer vision part was something that, as a computer science engineer, I'd worked in my final year of college. So that's all. That's the background that we had, but nothing in retail, nothing in finance. So then when it was not working, we were interacting with a lot of companies parallelly, because I mean, you get that idea, right? If it's working or not working in 6 months, you get that idea. I mean, initially you feel okay, you're getting some traction, but traction not in terms of revenue, but in terms of interest from prospective customers. And these are enterprise level customers, Adidas, Benetton, all of those, right? We were doing pilots with them, but you sense that, it's not going to give you money. And plus the kind of effort that you're putting in, the kind of models you are training, the kind of infrastructure you are playing with, it wasn't worth it, right? And there are a lot of companies in this domain that either got acquired by um, warehouse enterprises, very different kind of play that turned out to be that whole CCTV based, or video analytics, and analytics on any kind of video feed. So what we learned early on was that the technology is good, we've built it, we can use it, we can leverage that to use it in different other problem statements. And parallelly, we were trying 4 or 5 other problem statements also with this tech. Once we realized that it's not going to work, it's kind of, we might end up wasting a year on it. It's better to experiment it with other industries.
Right.
So while we were experimenting with supply chain, we were experimenting with logistics, the same kind of
Excuse me if I interrupt you. Fundamentally, you were a technology first company, right?
correct.
You
Yes.
just had technology. They wanted to find a way to apply it meaningfully, and
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I had a solution and then I found a problem, but the problem that we were chasing first wasn't worthy enough, right? So now that your tech is built, you want to use it for any other meaningful problem. Yeah, so we had the technology built. A couple of people in the industry, some veterans, some professionals, suggested that there are a couple of other problem statements you could look at. We tried to collaborate with a lot of companies which were doing something in vision, something in image based or video based processing, not particularly machine based processing, but like human processing or hosting and all of that. And it's in 2018, right? And in India, AI wave hasn't even taken a step, right? A few select companies are working on computer vision. NLP is something which happened very late. So we are doing a lot of things experimenting, and then KYC was one place which struck it, because we were able to give that kind of a black box to these players. And again, um, India is really growing very fast. In 2018 to 2022, the fintech space, of course, it's booming now also, but the fintech boom really pushed, like it went on a hockey stick curve,
Yeah,
and we
right.
were right at that place where we could make use of that. So that's how we had a solution built for another problem. We modified it, we tweaked it to fit into another case. And then, then once that problem was identified and an MVP was there, then we built the whole layer to serve the industry. And then, again, the use cases and the market expansion took place. That's how a B2B company expands its revenue, by expanding the market.
How did you approach the enterprise level customers initially? How did you pitch them? How did you find the key actors, the key players that are the decision makers?
Yeah. Uh, so there were two ways to approach it, right? First is not to go after enterprises. The best way to go after enterprises is to not to go after them, but go to competitors which are growing in their space and trying to threaten their business. Right. So
All right.
enterprises are scared of startups, because startups take out their business for a cheaper amount, probably, and for a faster execution. Right. So we tried to tap into those players, and we got all of them. And then the enterprise naturally wanted to have us, because they were like, all the competitors have it, and it's becoming their competitive advantage, right, against us. So that's how enterprises started interacting with us and started taking a product. And one of those case studies is published on AWS also, where we worked with a banking player. and we got we were trying to chase them for 9 to 12 months, but they weren't really acting upon it. But then there was a need of the hour, and they really wanted those solutions. They got it implemented in 3 weeks, right? And that's a case study on Amazon Web Services. So, enterprise came on very late, and startups were our primary focus. And then enterprise happened, because if you go ahead and start pitching to enterprises or hope for enterprises to crack, I mean, to make a deal with you, your runway as a startup is not that huge. I mean, an average sales cycle for an enterprise would be somewhere around 7 months to, 12 months, right? So that's very critical for a startup. So you don't optimize for time. Sorry, you optimize for time and not money, right? So you start making revenue, whatever you can make, and make sure that you start first sustaining yourself. We didn't have a lot of funding initially, so we had to sustain through our revenue. So we didn't want to go to enterprise and waste our time. So we went to startups, pitched them, then made money, made our name, made some credibility in the market, and then enterprise followed.
How much time do you build your MVP, and did it look different from your final product over the years?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So our MVP, revolved around um, building a lot of video-based product. Going very specifically about our product, we were doing a lot of video processing and not a lot of image processing. Video processing involves you to go frame by frame and all, but it's a heavy, intensive process, right? So an MVP was slow, particularly in any kind of verification, any kind of image processing for face match or a face liveness check or any kind of data reading also. And then we realized that, there are other ways to go about it. And finally, we had a model which would work on an image instead of video, right? So an
Mhm.
MVP was just to convince them of the idea that, online verification or online identity check and onboarding and KYC can be made simpler, can be made faster through APIs, through iframe integrations. So the MVP was just us showing, a middleware, but that middleware had uh, no checks on the time it was taking, the processing units that it was taking. So the final product was very seamless, was very smooth, very minimal, and highly, how would I put it? Like the kind of money that the customers were paying us, the ROI for us was huge, right? So that's how we basically increased the profit. So MVP is where you're somewhere here in terms of revenue. In terms of your invest revenue and investment, and slowly your final product goes like this, right? So investment seems very low in terms of the revenue you're kind of making. So that's the definition of finding the sales market fit or product market fit, where you're able to generate more profit, generate more revenue on the same kind of investment that you're making to build the product, right? So that's the difference.
The reason I asked you about how did you approach your first customers is because I think that's region specific, but in the European countries, the whole sales cycle of selling to enterprise customers is very long and it's very
Yeah.
difficult to find anyone because there's lots of regulatory compliance involved. So it could take years to approve of your product, and I guess in India there's a different situation.
No, I think it's the same.
The same.
We have our own kind of regulations, own kind of compliances, which are very India specific,
Mhm.
right? Uh, for that, what matters is not if you can execute it. The what matters is, do they know you? Are you credible enough for them to trust you, right? Technology underlying, there's nothing that I can bring on the table that a 10-year-old, 20-year-old tape company will bring, right? But at the same time, they want to see that if they can trust me, if they can work with me, can they rely on other people's testimonials? So that is how the credibility was built. So we hired a couple of senior consultants from this space who could help us make our pitch, make our sale. But first, we had to prove our credibility by awards and recognitions. Make sure that the top, um, you know, awards in the category we had already won, right? Best regulatory tech company, we'd won that, right? Best fintech infra provider, all of those best emerging startups, all of those awards, in some shape or form we had first gotten, and then we had gone to enterprise, or the enterprise discovered us. Makes things more easier, right? Regulations and all. I think for us to fulfill the bank's regulation, for example, was a 1 month job, but to get there, to get into the system, get their help also in sort of accomplishing the whole task, right? Because it's a 50-50 job. 50% they in enterprise, it's not a plug and play or a dev tool kind of a play. You can't do that with it. You can't ask them to go check your documentation and integrate it themselves. That's not how it happens. Enterprise requires sales. Enterprise requires a key account management. Enterprise requires a proper dev or a customer support, right? So that's something that requires from their on end also some sort of participation. So that builds only when you've talked to them, you made them realize that we're not bad people. They can trust us for a 10-year journey, right? We're giving them a product which will actually solve their problem, reduce their cost, increase their productivity in terms of the man hours that they're putting, right? So that's the kind of relationship you have to build with enterprises. And rest everything, I think they're very helpful. But yeah, to reach to the right person, to reach them at the right time is very critical, right? You might reach out to them selling AI, I don't know, in 2015, and they wouldn't bat an eye. But today, if you go and sell AI to any other company, they will be like, yeah, sure. I mean, let's just have a chat. Even if they're not giving a product which is useful to you, but they will never reject um, a company which is giving them AI, right? So that's the criticality that I was talking about.
Did you fundraise from the very beginning, or did you bootstrap your
Yeah.
initial MVP?
So we did a friends and family round, and
Mm.
we did our savings, right? I mean, how much savings could I have in 5 months job or 6 months job plus internship? But still, that was enough for us to buy a GPU initially, and then some from the government grant, right? So there are institutions in India which the government wants to promote the funding. So incubation centers, that would that was really less. Like that was a couple of $10,000 probably, and but the next set of funding that came in was after 2.5 years, right? Or 3 years almost. Because by then we had bootstrapped I mean, I won't call it bootstrapping also, but we were sustaining on our revenue, right? So we did, at a peak of our time, we did $200,000 monthly recurring revenue, and that was enough for us to sustain lavishly, right? So a small amount raised in the starting, and then to Y Combinator. So in between, we were all only surviving on our revenue, making profits, increasing our margins, and then Y Combinator came in, and then the micro VCs and the nano VCs and the angels from the US. Right, that's when they poured in. But then we decided to it was good time to take an exit, so we took an exit back then.
So there was
Yeah.
there was no VC money in between the time you raised from your friends and family and the government grant and
The Y
YC.
Combinator
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Between that, no VC money. I think it would have been a disaster if we'd taken it. I think for us, I mean, companies would. I mean, it's a bit of a controversial opinion, but somebody told me this and it struck really well in the context that I was working in also, that people mostly who raise money are people who are not able to generate money, right? So if you're able to generate revenue, you're able to make profits and cash flow, hardly someone wants to go and raise money unless and until they want to pump in for some new experiment or new R&D or expansion. But apart from that, sustaining, nobody really raises money for sustenance.
So your
That's
best
that's my
advice
opinion.
generally would be sustain yourself first, survive, and then
Try not to
Yeah,
take VC money as long as you can, unless
yeah.
you need
I don't know.
for
It's a very common phrase, but I'll repeat it here. The best time to raise money is when you don't need it. Because if you go out in desperation, I think investment, again, raising is a very pull job than a push job, right? So if you go reach out to VCs and keep pushing them to review you, then it becomes very hard. It's a very hard sell. But as long as you are making some noise, you're doing enough revenue, investors will reach out to you somehow or the other, right? So that's the best way to raise money.
some founders told us that if they were to start a new startup, they would only fundraise when growing so fast that they cannot sustain themselves on the revenue. I
I
guess
think,
again, it's case specific, but still, it's
yeah, I think it very much depends on whether a company is a B2B company or a B2C
yeah,
company, because in B2B, it's unit economic positive, right? So on day one, you have some sort of margin, some sort of, a potential of profit, right? So you just have to, burn some money to get the pipe running. And then when it is running, you just have to make sure that your margins increase and your upsell and your cross sell becomes very high, right? So I think it varies humongously when it comes B2C versus B2B.
yeah, because many new founders, new startups, they think that they should fundraise as soon as possible, and that's the most important thing in a startup. They're often misled by this idea. Yeah,
I think for a first time founder, um, also, I was 22 when I started up, so I have a lot of things to take care of. I could probably one day wake up and like, I don't want to do my job anymore. I want to quit and start something of my own. The risk was, I think the younger you are, the more risk you can take in life. That's what I think. And if I go and try to build my second startup, I would want to raise money. A, why raising money is good? Because a lot of problems that you will face yourself and a lot of mistakes that you will do yourself and learn, generally, if there are credible investors or people who have done this or learned people in the industry or in this space will guide you, right? So that's one thing that we learned the hard way. We had to, bump into everything first and then realize what had happened instead of preempting it, right? So there was no preemption. So that's one thing that money, VC money or any kind of good sort of investors on your cap table bring connections, right? So for us to build our credibility, we had to do everything from scratch, right? For one player, the second customer, the third customer, fourth customer, awards and everything was done by us. But in terms of if you raise money from credible people, they will get you at the right table, the right spot at the right time, right? So those are some things that money money buys actually. So
yeah,
or equity can buy. Yeah,
yeah. But for the first time founders, unless you have some incredible credentials, it's
yeah,
pretty much impossible to raise money from it. You still have to do that to do everything from scratch and to prove yourself
yeah,
worth
Do
some
things that
sort.
don't scale.
Yeah,
yeah. Correct. So I was just saying, your best tool initially is your equity. A lot of people just
yeah.
go all gungo about, I don't want to give my equity, but I think that's the only asset you have that you can expand. Right? You don't have a lot of credibility. So play with your equity, play with your cards that you have. Yeah. So your question, why did we apply to YC, right? That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Uh, so we'd been applying to YC for a while, right? So we got in uh, the Winter 21 batch after, I think that was our fourth attempt to go to YC. Right, the first one we were pre-mark. I don't know. It was very early, right? I mean, I was like 80% convinced with whatever I was pitching, right? How can I expect someone who's been looking at startups day in day out to be convinced by that, right? So the second attempt was we were still building, trying to build conviction and trying to tell them that was not convincing enough. I think third time again it was not a good enough journey, but by the time we thought that it's a good place to be in, and plus expansion to US becomes very easy for us once we get into YC. So that was the main reason. And then COVID hit, and we couldn't move to the US, and things took a different turn from there. But the original idea was to raise some sort of money from the valley and also expand in the US if possible. And again, credibility for B2B businesses. Someone who understands YC and doesn't know your name will still do business with you because of YC, right? So those are some perks those are irreplaceable for anything else.
So when you got in, what was your traction at that point?
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
You could
what
share some
changed? Yeah,
metrics
if you could share some
before and
metrics
after.
and so
yeah.
the first you
So
applied last time when you got in.
I think when we got in, we were at 70K MRR, 70,000 USD, and when we came out, we were at 150 to 200. That was obviously because
3
um,
months, right?
3 to 4 months. Yeah, I mean the program is for 3 months, but when you get in between that, there is one more month, right? From the start of the batch to the from the date of acceptance. So 3 to 4 months. Yeah, and obviously, I think YC really excels in B2B. Obviously, they know lot more other things also, but B2B is something that's really their forte, and that really helps. Partner comes in with a lot of B2B sales experience, and that's what we needed. It was overall very good. And yeah,
Some founders, some B2B founders actually told us that when they got into YC, they started selling to other YC companies. So there's a network of companies. You can sell to the network, and
yeah,
everybody supports each other in B2B.
Did that happen
absolutely.
to you?
Yeah, it did. So a lot of Indian, fintech again is a very interesting space where YC puts in money, and that was one of the key areas where we were looking for customers. So a lot of potential customers and customers came in from our YC network, but Indian YC network. But of course, there were a lot of people from Latin that I was talking to, who were in the fintech space, and then that was one area where heavily explored if we can actually enter Latin, start expanding to Latin instead of the US, because US was a big is still a bit tougher market to enter. Plus, there were a lot of more established players in the US market. So to compete with them, we actually had to move to the US, understand more about the customers, the space, right? So KYC space is very region specific. I mean, I can't sit in India and try to build it for the US. It's foolish to think like that. But LATAM again is a very similar economy in terms of Southeast Asia or South Asia, right? That's what we've heard, and that also a lot of YC alumni and a couple of companies in the fintech space who were running and associated with YC. I think we did have a good sort of pilot with them, but again, didn't turn out to be full-fledged partnership. But yeah, of course, YC is very easy to get into those economies because of YC, because of potential network, existing network.
Aside from the revenue boost and the new customer relationships, do you think your startup would be any different without YC? I mean, did it have any fundamental effect on the maybe on you as a founder, your founder heuristics, decision making as a founder?
I think for us, we were doing a lot of revenue already, right? And I think I could be wrong on that, but I think we were in our batch, we would have been in the top five revenue making companies when they joined YC and when they exited YC. Right? So a lot of things we had learned ourselves, to be very honest. And but in terms of general startup dynamics, founder dynamics, and sales and investments, raising funds and all, I think that was one place where we learned a lot. Because that was something that we couldn't have learned by bumping our heads,
Right.
right? So soon in 2, 3 years. So in raising fund, the exit process, um, you know, the what org structure, right? Or how do you build an organization? How do you build a lean structure in a company? Retaining employees. All of those very key nuances, very key insights come from a lot more experience from YC and their book face and their guide, right? Which they have for YC founders. I think these are some areas where things did improve. We had no clue, learned all of that from YC. Plus, the struggle that a lot of founders talk about. So one of our sessions, the first sessions that we have, I think it should be prevalent today also, would be with Airbnb founders, right? I think for others also, for us, they were the first ones. And the story that they told was very motivating, right? It tells you that you have to stick here for long enough. It's not a 2 to 3 year kind of or a 4 year kind of a job, right? If you want to build a business which is as magnanimous as Airbnb, you have to stick for like 5, 10 years and see a lot of no's and a lot of rejection. So these kind of stories, these kind of insights, again, are very key to YC. I don't think you get that free on YouTube. I mean, obviously you can, but then you do a lot more scraping. It's a concentrated place of gold mine knowledge about startups. YC. Yeah.
And also, Airbnb is the example, is the perfect example of cockroaches or
Correct. Yeah.
ramen profitability with their Obama serial moments and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
It was also,
that story I hadn't heard. I mean, it's a common story, but uh, I didn't know about it, and I was blown. They were making cereals during election campaigns, and I was like, wow, that's the kind of effort that you need to put to sustain yourself. Yeah.
Especially in B2C.
Yeah, I think, yeah. In B2B also, I mean, the downturns are there, but yeah, B2C, I think building businesses takes a lot of effort.
There's
Yeah,
also a different threshold of, I mean,
correct.
businesses are reasonable,
Yeah,
and they have some kind of metrics they optimize for, profitability and so on. And so you either increase their sales or reduce their costs.
yeah.
With customer, it's much more difficult than that.
I think
And
for
also
someone
competing with,
build,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, please go ahead.
I was also saying that you're also, even if you're there's this misconception that if you're building something for free and offering it for free, everybody will just accept it and download your app or visit the website. But you're competing for their time with
Yeah,
other great apps.
correct. Agree. Totally agree. Yeah. What else do you have for me? Be happy to answer.
I think our next questions will be about the acquisition and the exit.
Yeah. For the acquisition exit, I think I'd be very limited. So, I mean, I just want to keep it low key in terms of the acquisition. We never really PR'd about it or never did a lot of public. Uh, but again, yeah, be happy to answer very specifically and very consciously. Yeah.
When you exited,
Yeah.
how did you transfer all the workflow, the knowledge, the technology? How
Yeah.
does that happen? It's really interesting to the new owner.
Correct. So it's a process which, initially looks like a code-based transfer. That's it, but it isn't like that. It took us a year to do that. And to be honest, code-based transfer was the least hectic and the least, uh, you know, of the headaches. The legal proceedings of it, proceedings in the sense, I mean, that's a wrong word to use, but the legal work which goes into it, the structure, right? Because it's a Delaware corp and the main entity is in India. These things, to find a solution to make sure that all the compliances are met, right? You're doing the right reportings, the handshake is done, and then there is a share of transfers, then there is a, you're making sure that you don't falter anywhere and the acquirer has enough confidence and has done their due diligence. Those checklists, right? That runs, I mean, if I had to actually think about the checklist, that's like 1,000 rows on Excel, right? And then there's a lot of to and fro because the due diligence company would come back and with their own tax, I mean, their own questions about the tax that you failed, the revenue that you made, the profit that you booked, the stickiness of the customer, who's the customer, what are their legal names and everything, right? So in B2B, your customers are also very different from different industries. So they want to check all of that. The due diligence is one part. Then again, whatever you filed till now, right? Whatever taxes you filed, whatever reportings that you've done, that they also need to audit that. Plus, it's done two-way, right? So in Indian company also, which is a subsidiary of the US corp, and the US company also. So they audit both of that, the founders, the product that we've built, and then it comes to the code base where it's just a GitLab or a GitHub credential exchange, and they run the code, they see if it's working. And again, how one can make it easier is by building a lot more documentation while you're building a startup, right? So initially, okay, so I think when you are building a company with the within with an acquisition in mind, which was there for us, you do a lot more things differently, right? So you build a lot of things in isolation, decoupled with your own identity as a company, right? So it becomes easier for you to hand over the company because it's less attached to you. For example, you buy a domain, it really depends on, you buy it through your personal email ID because, right, the first thing that you do while trying to build a startup is buying a domain, right? So you want to make sure that the domain transfer is easy. So that's basic when you're building a startup. But when you're selling it, it's the highest, biggest deal, right? Because that's all that matters. Your website, your API documentation, where is it hosted, what servers, right? So you make sure that that's least coupled with the CTO is a company's properties, company's purview and everything, and the documentation, right? So we were, you know, as a product and tech guy, I was very sure that everything that we were doing, even if it was, simple, but a documentation for it would be very helpful. Again, for our customers also. So we would share a lot of Notion documents with our customers also, because it was we always wanted to not have calls with them. We wanted them to give more documents to read. So that helped in the end towards the acquisition, because we were able to share with them what exactly you have to pitch to the customer and what we've been doing. So internal product documentations, external product documentations, API documentations, internal tech documentation, all of those were very helpful. So those we maintained on Trello, Whimsical, Notion. So these three tools, we documented a lot of things, and we just had to hand it over by making a checklist. If you want to access this particular element, and for this particular customer or for this particular segment of a customer, go to this, right? So it was a lot of hyperlinking. So it was a proper, um, it's a booklet that we gave to our acquirer. So for them, it was easy. They sat on it for 1 month, and consumed all the data, had their doubts, put that on email, we answered that. It becomes very easy. That's how we went about it.
So it's better if you're positioning yourself for an exit. It's better to
Yeah,
document everything
yeah,
as good as you can from the very beginning, right? Makes the job
yeah.
easier.
Correct. I mean, not just from an acquisition perspective, but your people who are working with you as employees, they might also keep changing, right? So the context transfer has to be very smooth in a startup. So if you wait for someone to grasp what things are coming up because they've been there for 5 years, that's a loss of revenue, a loss of customer service for you. So you want to make sure that whoever is building any core product in the company during the initial few years of the company formation, you want to document them so that someone who comes in later on can access those documents to understand why we do and what we do. So again, that helps in two ways: for your newer joinees, replacements, your attrition problems, and the acquisition problem.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
What will be your next step after the acquisition? What are you doing now? What is your vision for the future?
yeah. So
Maybe
right
your
now, yeah,
founders don't want to be a second time founder
Never. They just want to be consultants and
because the process is so difficult to build a
yeah,
startup in Europe that they mostly associate it with success and randomness rather than effort and
there are
merit.
lots of random moments like you cannot get a mortgage as a founder because
yeah,
your employees can, and
yeah.
that's
That's true.
specific. Yeah.
That's actually true. I mean, I was I was doing decently good, right? Startup was doing decently good, but I couldn't get a credit card. I was like, why? Because they say that your company is not very old and you are self-employed, so that's a problem. That's when I realized there are a lot of perks of being an employee than being an employer. But again, I mean, there are other perks that as an employer I get. So for me, then right now I work with a couple of startups in this space. In India, particularly, it's a growing market. So consulting with a couple of startups, primarily devoting time to a fintech, because again, fintech is booming and I want to explore the fintech space in India. Second time starting up will happen very soon, but I think right now the world is in such a transition phase that anything that you build today might become obsolete in the next few months, as we've seen with GPTs, right? I mean, that's the most uh, prolific example for this. So I'm just waiting, looking at a lot of areas, particularly in B2B, because again, I think B2B businesses are great. Plus, the credibility is built now. So it becomes easier to raise money, to go to pitch customers, go and pitch to customers. So I think that should be a good area for me to start in a few months, years, I don't know. Yeah. But there's no hurry. I mean, I'm fine where I am.
Would you say that B2B is overlooked by founders as compared to B2C?
Yeah. I think it's a non-fancy place to be in, and there's no startup glory to B2B companies, right? You hardly, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of B2B companies which make $1 million revenue easily, right? But you never get to know their names because they're not cool. They don't come on App Store. They don't come on Play Stores, right? So, right. So yeah, they overlook it because they don't. Half of the founders don't even know that that kind of a business model is actually a very good startup model because it's less, I mean, it's less headache. less of customer servicing. So yeah, it is overlooked by a lot of people. Seen that.
But
Yeah.
it was really interesting to hear your story and all the
It's great.
steps you had until you got to this point.
Yeah.
And most of the people that we've talked with, their startups never got to the exit phase.
Yeah.
So we didn't really know what to expect from.
I think yeah, I think it was great chatting with you because the whole journey. Yeah, I think after the completion of it, when you look at hindsight, there are a lot more insights, right? So if I've recorded a lot of podcasts with other people, but the insights were very limited, very time specific. But whatever I told you guys today is a very expansive
Yeah.
overlook of everything that happened. Right. So
So thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for accepting
great,
our invitation.
great chatting with you. I think.
Thank
And
you.
we'll keep in touch soon. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. Okay. Bye, guys.
Good luck for the future.
Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye.